we're going to take a look at your end of month transactions. In your narrative, this would be the last page of your packet where it says end of month procedures. The first thing it says is posting, that you have to catch up on your posting. This is the posting, all the posting to the subsidiary ledgers, all the posting to the general ledgers for all your regular transactions up to this point have got to be done. Make sure that your trial balance equals, everything is good, and now we're going to go forward with end of the month procedures. And this is, first of all, going to include some adjusting entries that are going to go into overhead, such as depreciation. When we have depreciation of office equipment, we debit depreciation expense and credit accumulated depreciation dash office equipment. These are things that deal with the factory, adjusting entries that deal with the factory building, and therefore, instead of debiting depreciation expense or insurance expense or supplies expense and all these things, we're going to be debiting overhead. We're still going to credit the same thing. So depreciation for equipment, we're still going to credit accumulated depreciation dash equipment or dash factory equipment. It's just our debit is going to be overhead. Then we have to go to our overhead analysis sheet and put the date in the reference and put the total for that depreciation there, and we would of course put it under depreciation. If it's insurance or taxes or something else, we would put it under whatever column. You're going to want to make sure that you end up, once you have everything in here, you're also going to have a journal entries. So you'll have journal entries on the 30th in which you are going to debit overhead for that amount, and you're going to credit, say, accumulated depreciation dash factory equipment, okay, for that amount. And once you get all of those in here and they're all in the journal entries, then you're going to total. You're going to total down here the grand total of the total column plus the grand total of each other column. Then I'm going to cross, but I'm going to make sure all of these across equal my grand total. And if it does, then you have cross-footed and everything is good. The other thing you want to check is, does this total equal the total of all the debits that you put into the overhead account in your general ledger? Just the debits. Alright, this next section is applying overhead. All our actual costs, such as the ones we just did, are debits to overhead. But when we apply overhead, that's where we're crediting overhead and we're applying it to the various jobs that we have. And here we're going to apply it first to the jobs that were completed this month, and then we'll apply overhead to the jobs that are still incomplete. So here it's telling us that jobs 130 and 131 were completed at the end of the month. And so now we have to compute the total direct labor hours for each job and calculate the overhead using the predetermined rate, overhead rate, which is $8.10 per DLH, direct labor hours. Okay, so we're going to have to find out how many direct labor hours are for each of these two jobs and multiply it by $8.10 per hour. And that's how much overhead we're going to apply to that job. And we have to do our journal entry and we have to post it to the job cost sheets. Okay, so our journal entry is going to be a debit. Say for this first job, 130 is going to be a debit to work in process dash job 30 and a credit to overhead. That's how we apply overhead. And now at the moment, I've got 1692.90 there, but at the moment we don't know how much it's going to be. So we have to go to our job cost sheet for job 130. And then we have to see, of course, when you do this, you're going to have more labor hours in here than what I have here. Okay, because you still have another payroll entry to add here. But once you have all that stuff is in there, you're going to total up the number of hours. Here's a column that says hours. You're going to total that up. Now, right now, I only have two entries in there, one for 71 hours and one for 138. So I'm going to total that up, and that's 209 hours. And I'm going to go over here to the overhead applied. I'm going to put in the date and the reference, which would be my general journal page, and the hours is 209, and the rate is $8.10 an hour, and the total, if I multiply those two together, is $1692.90. So that's where I get my number for that journal entry. Now, I'm also going to do job 130. I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to add up the hours, multiply it by $8.10, get that total amount, make sure I have the journal entry, and of course, I go back to the journal entry and I put my little X there to show that I did post that to the job cost sheets. So you're going to do that for both of those completed jobs. Now we're also going to apply overhead to the incompleted jobs. Jobs 121 and 132 are also need overhead applied. So when I take a look at those, notice that job 121 already has a balance in it. That's from May that is carried over to the beginning of June. That was the overhead we applied in May. Now we're going to apply some more overhead at the end of June, and then both of those amounts will carry over into July. And so I would do the same thing. I'm going to add up the hours, multiply by 810, put that up on here, and do my journal entry. Now, we also have to show that these two jobs, 130 and 131, are complete. And so we need to total those job cost sheets, complete the summary block, make a journal entry to transfer the cost of finished goods, and post all that. Okay? And so here on job number 130, I'm going to go ahead and do the summary. Okay? Now that means I have to total everything. So if I total up all the materials, that's 3103. Oops. If I total up the direct labor that's here, and of course again you'll have more entries than what I have. And I've already got a total, because there's only one thing there for the overhead. So now I go to this summary that's down. Every job cost sheet has a summary down on the right hand side of it. And I'm going to put those totals for the materials, totals for direct labor, and the totals for the overhead. And then I'm going to add up those three, and I get $6,085.40. And that cost is then going to follow this job on into finished goods, and then once it gets shipped, on out to cost of goods sold. Okay? Now, I go over here to the left is also a part of the summary. This is where we're going to calculate the cost per unit, which is very important, and we need that for the finished goods section. Okay, so the total cost is $608,540. The units produced, it tells you how many. It's a quantity of 130. And then we take the total of $608,540 divided by the 130 units, and that will tell us how much each unit cost us, which is $46.81. Now, this total cost, $608,540, is what's going to go on to my journal entry. And so here I'm debiting finished goods and crediting work in process - job 30 for the $608,540. And I would have my little X on here under work in process job 130 because I did post it there. Now I haven't posted it yet to finished goods. I did this journal entry earlier to show you how to do it. Okay, and so now I'm going to go to finished goods ledger, and I have to post that here. And so this job 130 went into number 341, finished goods number 341, which is stock. Okay, and my last row is this row, so I'm going to go down to the next row, put in the date, put in your journal reference, and whenever we complete a job, we're shipping that job into the warehouse. And so the warehouse is receiving this job. And so the warehouse is receiving 130 units, which cost us $46.81 a piece, for a total of $608,540. Now, you can see that when we have built Doghouse Deluxe 2s before, they cost $106.43 for us to build, and now all of a sudden they're costing us $46.81. If I were the manager, I would be very concerned that something was screwed up here, that we're not going to have that big of a difference. We might have a little difference if maybe we had some experienced people working on it. We might have been able to do it in less amount of time and have a little bit less cost in it. Maybe we got some really good materials and didn't have as much waste, or vice versa. Maybe it took us more time, or we had bad materials and there was more waste, whatever, that it might cost a little more, but that much of a difference, no. The reason it's that is, like I say, when I completed job 130, I didn't have all the costs in there. So I was just showing you how to do it. But in real life, you would question this. Alright, so we received that. So now over here in the balance section, we have to show, well, how many do we have? Well, we have, right now, we have 10 units at $107.30. We have 50 units that cost us $106.43. So together those 60 cost us $63.94.50. Okay, so I'm going to also, we now have 130 units at $46.81 in addition to those 60. And so our new balance, total complete dollar balance, is the $63.94.50 plus the $60.85.40. So $12,479.90. And we would go up here and get rid of that balance. Now, you're not going to have this same problem on these others because they have only one cost per unit. Here we have two different costs. We have a $107.30 and a $106.43, and now these new ones that you brought in. So we have three different costs. If we were to sell these, of course, we are working on FIFO, so we got to sell those 10 at $107.30 first. and then the 50 at 106.43, and then finally we would start dipping into the 130 units that are 46.81 apiece.